delegation of state leaders have been busy overseas. Japan, India, China, South Korea. Big stops around the globe. Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger on those trips, and he's here to explain Indiana's growing global profile and the potential economic impact. Plus, the Hoosier Lottery celebrating a milestone, its 30th anniversary. Executive Director Sarah Taylor is here with a look at how far the lottery has come in 3 decades and where it's going in a very competitive gaming marketplace. And the largest yearly gathering of economic development professionals from around the world is coming to Indiana. Host Committee Chairperson Maureen Krause is here to explain the trends and challenges facing the industry and how Indiana landed the big event. Details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business. Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. Well, Governor Eric Holcomb and Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger have returned from their second Trans-Pacific trip in less than a month. First it was Japan and South Korea, then a trip to China, and finally India. The delegation met with business, government, academic leaders at each stop. Why the increased interest in global markets? Well, to answer that question, I'm pleased to be joined by Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger. As always, Jim, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Gary.
We'll get right to it. A lot of travel, a lot of miles visiting in those destinations. Interesting insights you have. You talked about a meeting with Prime Minister Modi of India, yes, which really was kind of an exclusive opportunity. Talk about that, the discussion, and what went on between the governor, you, and the Prime Minister.
The governor is laser focused on taking Indiana to the world and bringing the world to Indiana every day. And he says the winners are the ones that show up to play. So we were granted an audience with Prime Minister Modi, and we were taken back at how well he knew Indiana. And of course, he coined the governor's phrase, you can't even spell Indiana if you don't start with India. But he knew our background, he knew our educational background, he knew our history of sports statewide, and he basically campaigned on 3 things. The first thing was on expanding their cultural reach, their educational reach, and also on sports. As a health thing, they have 1.3 billion people in the country, and he wants to be more than just a cricket state. So he basically asked the governor if Indiana would partner with all of our different leaders in sports, college and professional, amateur sports, if we would partner with him, knowing that we get the NBA All-Star, we have the NCAA here, partner with them specifically to help him develop his vision for India in sports, which is probably the highest honor we could get. And I thank a lot of the city leaders and state leaders that had that vision back in the 80s, which he pointed out. Yeah,
interesting. And I think reflective of Indiana's growing global profile, not just in India, but the reception you've gotten in some of these other countries kind of brought that home as well.
Magnificent. And you know, it's interesting, you know, everywhere we went, of course, in Asian countries of South Korea and Japan and China and India, there are issues, there are challenging issues economically. And we talked about, we always embrace the opportunities when we have really prosperous collaborative times, and we endure the difficulties and the challenges of when we have economic times like we are today. But as a global community, we know this is all going to work out, and every one of them thought it was very significant that the governor took the time to come during these times.
Talk about deals coming. You know, these trips, a lot of it's relationship building, you know, for existing companies you already have doing business here in the state, but also new relationships as well as you look at the potential for new investment, new companies coming out of them.
Yeah, we had over 75 meetings, and about 25% of those was for government and embassy people. The rest were for businesses. We met with businesses investing in Indiana to thank them. They had 49 other choices. We met with our Indiana businesses overseas, but we always bring back trips. We'll bring back 3, 4, 5 trips from this. We just recently announced Gordon Foods yesterday, and Gordon Foods is a company in Westville, 400 jobs, $160 million capex. Solier, we visited with Hitachi. They told us when we were there they were going to increase Solier up in northwest Indiana. eHealth, when we visited California, they made the announcement a week later, 500 new employees at a $10 million cap up in upper north side of Indianapolis. And Toyota Princeton, when we were in Toyota having dinner at Toyota headquarters, they announced they were going to expand the Princeton plant by 600 people and put a $1 billion investment. Yeah. So when we show up, our batting average soars.
Yeah, and so these trips, and you took along with you a number of mayors and other representatives from around the state, these are are of increasing importance when it comes to economic development. It's not just focused here on Indiana, the Midwest, the U.S., but really the globe.
Absolutely. We are a global economy, and the world gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and so we hit all 49 other states. Sometimes we act as a nation. Sometimes we act as individual states, and this is a full contact sport. And I go all over the country to the other 49 and all around the world. Because again, we want to build our state economically and from workforce outside in. Gary, we had 31,800 people migrate to Indiana last year for jobs. It's the first time, it's 2 years in a row we've had in-migration, but 31,800 to come for our workforce program.
And good to see that those numbers turn around. Very, very important. Very quickly, Routes America Conference is coming up. The possibility, 50-plus nonstops now at the airport, a record number, but you really feel that this really big conference can potentially lead to maybe more activity.
This is transformational. To have over 1,000 people come, route planners from 80 airlines, 300 international airports, and 50 tourism authorities. They're all going to come to the #1 airport in North America, go to the #1 convention center. And I think it's fair to say that we're in negotiations right now for 4 additional nonstop direct flights overseas.
All right. Well, we'll follow up with that, on you with that as well. Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger, as always, thanks for joining us. Go home and get some rest.
Thank you, Gary.
Talk to you soon. Well, also this week, a new, as Secretary Schellinger just pointed out, Gordon Food Service Distribution Center coming to Westfield. Randy Cook, the governor, and GFS executives on hand for that announcement. The Michigan-based company plans to invest more than $150 million to build a semi-automated facility, creating more than 200 jobs initially, with long-term plans to add 400. The North Point Industrial Park facility will be the company's 17th U.S. distribution center and its first in Indiana. Coming up next, 11 Indiana tech companies recently honored for their emphasis on workplace culture. Leadership from Genesis is here to explain why they walked away with Powder Kegs Award for top-rated social impact company. It's time now to go inside innovation. Well, Genesis says it powers more than 25 billion of the world's best customer experiences each and every year. More than 11,000 companies in over 100 countries trust Genesis Cloud's platform. Genesis acquired Indianapolis-based Interactive Intelligence about 3 years ago in a deal valued at $1.4 billion. I'm pleased to welcome Genesis Vice President of Corporate Affairs, Todd Peterson, to explain why the company was recently named Powder Kegs' top-rated social impact winner. Todd, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
As always. Genesis acquired Interactive Intelligence about 3 years ago. Give us the Genesis model, what it's all about.
Very good. Well, it was a terrific run. You know, with Interactive Intelligence, we've had 25 years of history on this site. Genesis has come in with a lot of energy. We have a much larger global footprint. As you said, we have 11,000 customers around the globe, and access to a lot more resources now than we've ever had before. So it's a broader customer base, a more global customer base, and just a lot more energy in the company. Yeah,
a California-based company, their largest footprint though here in Indiana, and you also have a new CEO, Tony Bates. Right?
Yeah, and he's incredible. Tony Bates comes to us via a long and wonderful history. I mean, he was executive at Cisco, at Microsoft. He was the CEO of Skype, and he was also the president of GoPro cameras. Wow. So he's played on the B2B and the B2C side. He has done a significant org adjustment and leadership adjustment inside, and we're starting to feel a lot of positive momentum with the employees.
Big part of your business, the business at Genesis, social impact winner at the recent Powder Keg Breakout Tech Awards. Big focus on inclusiveness and inclusion in the workplace, diversity in the workplace. Why is that important?
Well, that was a wonderful award, and we're a big fan of Powder Keg and Matt Hunkler's team. We were thrilled to win the Social Impact Award. It means a great deal to our employees. We have a lot of curious, very bright workforce, and they love to give back. They love to serve as mentors. That award means a lot because we've been so intentional about the focus in terms of what we do in our corporate social responsibility programs. And so it means an awful lot to us.
And you've got to be very intentional about doing those things, which takes effort. I know you're involved, the company is, with Project Indy, the inclusion initiative by Mayor Hogsett, the city, chamber, and others. It's something that's the right thing to do, but also I'm sure it benefits from a talent standpoint, be able to attract and keep talent as well.
Absolutely. I mean, the critical tenet for us of our culture is that we respect and value the variety of backgrounds and individuals, despite their geography or generation, and that is the foundation of the core of our culture. That the diversity and inclusion piece, you know, as you come in the front door in Indianapolis, Indiana, and you can maintain this Hoosier lifestyle, but you walk in the front door and you're immediately open to a global workforce. So.
Genesis is the company, more than 800 employees, and the social impact winner of Powder Kegs Breakout Tech Awards. Todd Peterson, great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And look forward to having you back soon.
Yep, I enjoyed it.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Well, here's what's on tap now in tech news, served up by Sun King. Manchester University in northern Indiana adding a new team and has joined the National Association of Collegiate Esports. The university will have a varsity-level co-ed team that will compete in video online gaming. Manchester says it will compete in 2 games this spring and then will prepare for an esports arena to be built on campus. Evansville-based Safekeeping walked away with top honors at the inaugural Z-Works Pitch Night competition in Zionsville. The company provides a communication and collaboration platform for long-term care facilities. It won a year of office space at Z-Works. Safekeeping CEO Doug Wilcox says the startup is on pace to hit its first milestone of having its platform in 100 facilities by the first quarter of next year. And speaking of pitch competitions, Indianapolis-based Elevate Ventures has launched a new competition to help entrepreneurs. The VC firm accepting applications for the inaugural Elevate Nexus Regional Pitch Competition. Finalists will be selected October 21. Each winner will be considered an Elevate Ventures portfolio business and have access to network of advisors and resources. And for Tech News 24/7, be sure to check out InsideIndianaBusiness.com. Coming up next, it's almost hard to believe it's been 3 decades since the first Hoosier Lottery scratch-off ticket was sold. The day was October 13, 1989, and since then, sales of lottery products have topped $23 billion. Where the money goes and what's next for the Hoosier Lottery when we come back. Here's what's making news now around Indiana. In Lake County, the West Lake Corridor Commuter Rail Project has taken a big step forward with the U.S. Federal Transit Administration giving its stamp of approval to push the project into the engineering phase. That project involves an 8-mile extension of the South Shore rail line between Dyer and Hammond and would provide important transit service to downtown Chicago. It will also include the addition of a gateway station on the north side of Hammond. The project expected to be complete by 2024. In southern Indiana, Texas-based Lehigh Hanson has broken ground on a $600 million modernization of its cement plant in Bedford. The expansion expected to create about 50 new jobs, and the company says it will retain the 120 employees already working in Lawrence County. The Mitchell facility, one of 19 cement plants under the Lehigh Hanson umbrella. And a company that makes boat interiors and other components has chosen the small town of Milford in Kosciuszko County to locate a startup operation. Williamsburg Marine says it will invest more than $1 million on the project, which will create about 75 new jobs. Milford is near Lake Wawasee and other lakes in that part of the state where the maritime industry is big business, to the tune of $313 million. Well, the Hoosier Lottery is celebrating its 30th anniversary. From its beginning in 1988 and 89, when the state-run lottery was approved by 62% of Hoosiers and Hoosier voters in a referendum, to selling its first Hoosier Lottery scratch-off ticket in 1989, and now to selling scratch-off and draw games through a network of more than 4,300 retailers. Executive Director Sarah Taylor is here now to look back and also to look ahead at what's next for the lottery in a very competitive. Sarah, welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir.
This brings back memories.
I
do remember the launch of the lottery. I was in the day-to-day news business at that time, and it was a big deal. And we have some video, I know, of those big lines and the scratch-off tickets, the Hoosier Lottery game, which was a popular TV show.
That's right. Hoosier Millionaire was on from 1989 to 2005.
Yeah.
We made 191 millionaires on that show.
That's amazing.
Isn't that awesome?
That is amazing. And the changes over the years. I mean, you go back to those days 30 years ago. I think one of the biggest changes is certainly technology and how you've leveraged technology at the lottery.
Yes, in the old days, you would walk into the retailer and they would look at the scratch off by sight to see if you were a winner. Now you can see if you're a winner on the mobile app we have for free.
Yeah. And that is, I assume, technology like in any business, it's very much needed and necessary, but it's a challenge. You got to be very intentional about keeping up with that, with the technology. So how important is technology now to the lottery, the business of the lottery?
Well, the heart of our business is security and integrity and people's belief that we're running fair games. And so technology plays a huge role in that and will in the future too.
Yeah. As you look at changes over the years and the things that have changed for the lottery, one thing that hasn't changed is the impact on the state. Billions with a B of money that you've contributed to the state of Indiana. Talk about where that money goes.
That's right. So $6 billion to the state of Indiana over these past 30 years. Every year, $30 million. Our police and pension, police pension and firefighter pension, $30 million to the teacher retirement fund, all remaining dollars then annually into what was known as the Build Indiana Fund, which really offsets the motor vehicle excise tax for every Hoosier.
Yeah. You talk about sales, you wonder 30 years later, is it still popular? Last year, $1.3 billion in sales, which was a record, right?
Yes.
What's the key? What do you have to do to stay relevant in the minds of consumers?
You said it right there, stay relevant. You have to have engaging games, you have to launch new games, you have to have licensed properties like on the scratch-offs. We did a Walking Dead ticket, the Indianapolis Colts, etc. So you have to dial it up and change your games and find out what the public really wants.
What's next, especially as you look at the marketplace? So 30 years ago, you could say it was competitive, but there weren't nearly as many competitors for consumers. And now you've got online sports gambling and all the different options that are out there. How does that impact the lottery?
Well, we're waiting to see how it's all going to impact us, but we're competing for the entertainment dollar, and that's important in our business to stay engaging. Like I said, we are looking to the future, and in our annual business plan, our partner IGT Indiana will be studying, for example, iLottery. You know, whether one day does it make sense to have a portion of your business online. You know, but we're looking at that cautiously, and it'll be a recommendation for them at some point down the road. It takes a lot of research, and not too many states are doing it yet.
All right, we'll be interested to watch that. The Hoosier Lottery, 30 years, a big milestone. Sarah Taylor, the Executive Director, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, coming up next, a global gathering of the biggest minds in economic development happening in Indianapolis. The event's host committee chairperson, Marion Krause. There she is. She's here with details. She's in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge presented by Star Commercial Banking, Indiana born for Indiana business. Well, the International Economic Development Council is a nonprofit, nonpartisan membership organization serving economic developers around the globe. More than 5,000 members. IEDC is the largest organization of its kind in the world. This year, the annual conference for the organization will be held in Indianapolis. The theme, Driving Growth, the race for talent, innovation, and place. And host committee chairperson Marion Krause is here now to explain how Indy landed the conference and why that's important. And Maureen is always welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Okay, the International Economic Development Council, as I mentioned, largest organization of its kind in the world. This is really membership involving economic developers and the key players in the economic development world.
Yes, and it really isn't just economic developers, but it's also the partners in the whole team. So the consultants and the data people and the research people that all make a project and a community thrive. So we're excited to bring them all together and to bring them here.
This is a big international event
Yes.
that has been going on for, I think, close to 60 years. How did Indianapolis, quite a coup for Indianapolis to land this event. How did that happen?
Well, I think, as people realize more and more what's going on in that city, more recognition around the country by the board of IEDC that wanted to bring the conference to a place where we could learn about a community that is really solving problems and advancing. So they were intrigued by the story, as well as just the location, the airport, all of the assets that we have to make this such a fantastic conference city.
And so, yeah, certainly a great convention city. You talk about the issues, talent, quality of place, those types of things we talk about all the time. Those are going to be some of the big issues. But as you kind of alluded to, attendees will actually be visiting places like the IoT lab in Fisher's Grand Park in Westfield. They're going to be visiting some spots to get a firsthand look at the Indianapolis region.
You can sell through words and you can sell through pictures, but you can best sell by having people see things from themselves. And we have some really great stories here about reuse, redevelopment, things that I think our attendees will like to see how we actually got things done, our best practices. So the tours are great, and the only regret is that when you have a conference with almost 1,400 people, you can't get them all over the state.
Yeah, and the benefit of that includes telling that the story of the Indianapolis region, right? When you look at the IoT lab, you look at Salesforce with its regional headquarters here, having attendees from all around the globe see what's here can pay dividends.
We'll be at Grant Park, and we'll be in Carmel looking there. So we're trying to get as far out as we can take people as we can.
As you look at the issues that will be talked about, I talked about talent and quality of place. Those are top of mind issues that will be talked about at the conference?
Absolutely. They're issues not unique to our area. We do a great job here of addressing those issues and looking for solutions that work for us, but they resonate not just around the country, but around the world. I mentioned I was just in France recently, and they're talking about talent shortages.
Yeah, same thing.
And so it is a global issue, and we bring in best practice speakers, but we also get to showcase our efforts here.
And as we wrap up, economic developers, but as you talk about influencers, those people who really, site selection consultants, and their presence here is something that could mean good things down the road.
Because they will get to see for themselves the experience of being here, but also the best practices. And we love to show off the area. This is our time. We're keeping our fingers crossed for the great weather we've had for the past week. It'll be a wonderful conference.
All right, the conference begins. It's beginning now. Certainly, Marion Krause, host committee chairperson, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, coming up, it's being billed as a game changer for Indiana small businesses when it comes to health insurance, thanks to a new alliance between the Indiana Chamber and Anthem. Kylie Valletta will have details coming up. Stay with us. Well, the cost of health care insurance continues to be a top concern among Hoosier employers. The Indiana Chamber is rolling out a new health care option with a special focus on small companies. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta has more. Kylie.
That's right, Gary. The Indiana Chamber says its new Chamber Care Health Alliance is a game changer for businesses with less than 50 employees, opening the door to premium rates generally only available to larger companies. The Chamber and Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield say this is the next chapter in their 15-year partnership to provide a series of health insurance offerings for Indiana employers. Here to tell us more are Joe Gilbert, Anthem's Vice President of Small Group Sales, and Tom Schuman, Communications and Operations Senior Vice President at the Indiana Chamber. Thank you both for being here today.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah.
So we mentioned in the introduction, this is being characterized as a game changer. So Joe, we'll start with you. Why is this such a big deal for small companies?
Well, the number one thing I hear from small employers throughout the state is just the need for more affordable health insurance options. So we're very excited to leverage really the association health plan rules and our partnership with the Indiana Chamber to be able to offer a new, much more affordable product that really is going to help small businesses save money on their health insurance costs.
And important to note, this is statewide, not just focused in Indianapolis. So Tom, we were talking off camera, and you said the two most common things the Chamber hears from its members are workforce issues and healthcare costs for insurance. So why did the Chamber really want to do this for small companies, and what are some of the other benefits of this program?
Well, as you said in your introduction, this is the continuation of a 15-year partnership between the Chamber and Anthem, and that those products have evolved over the years as the rules have changed, but it's really been focused on affordable health care coverage. One of the additional benefits this time is all participants get a membership in the Wellness Council of Indiana. Wellness Council has tremendous benefits, assessment programs, best practices, so they can help employers improve the overall health and productivity of their workforce, eventually leading to lower healthcare costs down the road.
And so, Joe, this is a relatively new model, but Anthem has done this in other states?
Yeah, so we've been very successful with this model. We've rolled it out in Ohio, Missouri, Kentucky, and Georgia, and we've done very, very well with it. And that was a big advantage for us here in Indiana, as we were able to take lessons learned and really apply them and make it a smooth process to launch it here for the Hoosier State.
So, Tom, do you think, from the Chamber's perspective, does this make Indiana an even more attractive place to do business?
We think it does, but you mentioned before that what we hear from employers is not surprisingly the shortage of talent these days, and also that uncertainty around healthcare. But think about it this way: if this program can help reduce healthcare costs, that allows an employer maybe to shift some resources, and it could be those small things that could help retain some employees or even attract new employees. So anything that goes to that better workplace culture and helping meet those talent needs is good for the state.
Well, it kind of helps shift the bottom line for the
Absolutely.
companies. And Joe, we mentioned rolled this out in mid-August, so it's been out for a little while. What kind of response are you getting? What are you hearing?
Yeah, so we started quoting it on August 19th. For October 1st was the first effective date, so you could have it. It's available in all 92 counties, and it's sold through insurance brokers. You can go to anthem.com for info. But we've had really tremendous response, and the volume of quote requests and really the amount of information that's been driven to us has been beyond what we expected.
And I know you're really excited about this program, Tom. So if you could really boil it down, what is the Chamber most excited about offering this to small companies?
Well, again, and we said small companies. This is for organizations with between 2 and 50 employees. So it's so critical for them. They're the ones that need assistance. They don't have all the resources in-house to know how to navigate the complexity of the healthcare market. So again, the partnership, the great resources at Anthem, that's what really makes it so beneficial for Chamber members.
All right. Well, thank you both for being here and telling us more about the program. I know so many small companies helping support Indiana business, so we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary, back to you.
All right, Kylie, thank you. Well, students in Marion and in the region around Marion are soaring to new heights in the Aviation Academy at the Marion Regional Career Center. Now, this unique 2-year program is a partnership with Marion Community Schools in Grant County. And in our Eye on Education segment, aviation instructor Scott Simpson and Aviation Academy student Emma Jacobs are here to talk about how the program is going and how it can really have an impact on workforce. And welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Scott, I'll start with you. I think this is a great example of getting creative, of collaborations addressing workforce issues. We talk a lot about the shortages in the aviation field, be it in the technical area or in the pilot area. Talk about this program and really how it works.
So the program was basically a dream of the president of the Board of Aviation Commissioners and one of our school board members at the time, realizing that there was a shortage and there is going to be a continued shortage in the aviation industry. And having the facility out at the airport just kind of sitting there, the conversation turned to what could we do to help our students get into this high wage, high demand career.
Yeah, the jobs that pay above the average wage. And talk about the different areas, because it's all different areas of aviation.
It is.
Right?
So Obviously, when you talk about aviation, pilot is the first word that comes out of people's mouths, but also air traffic control. People don't realize the mandatory retirement age there is 55, and so the air traffic control is looking for students, the aviation maintenance, mechanics. Somebody's got to maintain the aircraft and put those together, and then there's the operations piece. Running the airports and helping the airlines make sure pilots fall within their hour limits and the scheduling piece of it.
So Emma, you're on a path now for a career in aviation, but when you first heard about this program, you really had no interest in aviation,
No,
right?
I didn't at all. I heard about it through somebody coming from Marion High School Career Center to my local high school, and I just wanted to try something new.
Now, as you got into this, you thought maybe you wanted to be a pilot, right? But you actually kind of changed direction.
Yeah, I had flew a few times, and I liked it, but I don't think I could have made a career out of it. So then I started searching for other careers, and I found aviation management, and that led me to getting an internship at the airport.
And I should mention briefly, we were talking about that. You've really spearheaded a solar project. Talk about that at the airport.
I am in charge of completing a solar panel project. I'm the leader of it, and it's just, I want to help the environment, and there's so much unused land at the airport, and since we can't put up like wind farms and those kinds of things, solar was definitely a way that I could help.
Scott, talk about kind of the impact, because it's at the Career Center in Marion, but you really are a regional career center, so you're touching students in multiple high schools.
We are, and we've actually had students come that are from other regional career centers, but since their career center doesn't offer an aviation program, their area allows them to come to Marion.
And some of the graduates, too, as we were talking off camera, go on and really natural transitions to the Lift Academy, Republic Airways here in Indianapolis, so they're going on to real definitive careers.
Right. So as the instructor, I really try to provide students with real-world connections. And so last year we actually took a field trip to the Lift Academy, and that really sparked a couple of students' interest in going that way. Instead of going to a four-year college like a Purdue or an Indiana State to get their aviation training, they went right into the Lift Academy, which will allow them to fly, then be flight instructors, and then build their hours that way.
Emma, you're a senior, and you've got definite plans. Talk about where you want to go and what you want to major in.
I've applied to a lot of schools, a lot of colleges, but a lot of colleges don't offer aviation management, but Purdue does, and that's my #1 school. I really hope to get in there, so I would definitely like to be in the aviation field.
Well, good luck to you, Emma and Scott. Thanks for being here as well. Innovative program happening in Marion to get professionals into that field, which is in high demand. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Well, a reminder: all of our Eye on Education segments can be found at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. And if you have an interesting story idea, please send it to segment producer, lead producer Tara Twig at ttwig@growindiana.net. Also making headlines this week, Amplify has announced a $15 million Series B round of funding led by New Jersey-based growth equity investor Edison Partners. The Fishers-based company, which focuses on employee engagement measurement software, plans to reinvest the funds back into its core product offerings and also add new jobs in several areas of the company. Previous investors, including Allos Ventures, Cultivation Capital, and 4G Ventures Managing Director Bill Godfrey, also participated in the round. Since its founding, Amplify says it's grown year-over-year revenue by more than 275% on average. Still ahead, our insiders will sound off on some of the week's top stories, but first, Indianapolis gearing up to host the star-studded NBA All-Star Weekend. In less than a year and a half, we'll explain how it's going to be an event with statewide impact and a potential game changer for 21 youth-serving nonprofits and hundreds of kids around the state. One offices throughout the world. BGD says the combination will have a total of 1,100 attorneys, which would make it the 6th largest law firm in the U.S. Denton's touts more than 10,000 attorneys in 70 countries. While the 2021 NBA All-Star Game and weekend are still more than a year away, the host committee this week revealed plans for a statewide legacy program to last well beyond the festivities. Bill Benner has more in this week's Inside Indiana Sports. Bill.
Gary, thanks. Well, as has become the norm with major sporting events coming to Indy, local organizers have planned a major leave behind after the All-Star Game departs in February of 2021. This time it will be a $1 million grant program that will benefit 21 youth-serving organizations throughout Indiana. Joining us today to discuss the AllStar Legacy project is host committee co-chair Rafael Sanchez. Rafael, my friend, good to see you on the. Good to see you again as always. Great announcement this week at the governor's residence on the basketball courts with kids and basketballs and mascots. It was a great day, but the essence was this really outstanding legacy program. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, couldn't ask for better weather the other day, but it's a great program. Very excited about it. It's a chance to really make a community impact in statewide effort, giving $1 million away to 21 youth-serving organizations across the state, and we're going to be very intentional about that. We want to make sure that even though the game is played in central Indiana, that communities around the state have a chance to benefit well after the game is played.
Yeah, and you know, the good example would be the Chase Near East Side Legacy Center after the Super Bowl. But this, again, throughout the state, and what do people have to propose?
So what we're doing is it's a grant application process that they will have to go to pacers.com and search for All-Star, and they can find the application there. But we're focusing on health and wellness and education. So think about a basketball court, playground equipment, maybe a STEM lab. You know, obviously we've given some parameters, but we really want to hear from community-based organizations about what ideas they have. And we're going to try really hard to leverage other existing dollars that those communities might have to really just maximize the opportunity. And again, being very intentional, making sure that citizens around the state feel the love from the NBA All-Star Game.
For our statewide audience, it's important. This is not just an Indianapolis effort.
Correct.
This is going to reach all corners of the state.
Yeah, and another thing that's a really important component of it is this rising star element. So we're going to have, for each one of the 21 projects across the state, we're going to have a youth that will serve as the honorary co-chair, a graduate of the class of 2021, to build on the theme. And that person will be involved and hopefully engage other youth in that community to participate in one way, shape, or form into that community project. So it's really going to be all hands on deck and really trying to activate that community.
And that young person will have to, I mean, he will be absolutely the best of the best, I would assume, coming from those communities.
Yeah, so what we're asking is that those community-based youth-serving organizations that receive the grant will have a chance to nominate 3 local students for the Rising Star, and then the committee will ultimately decide. But what a great opportunity to engage youth and serving youth in this way. I couldn't be more excited.
And there will be a scholarship component to that.
Yeah, so we're looking into how can we then build upon that and add a scholarship component to that. So those details have to be hammered out, but again, just a tremendous opportunity.
You've been involved on a volunteer basis and a leadership basis a long time. Again, going back to what we said at the beginning, this is so much a part of what Indianapolis does that sets it apart from other cities when we do these events.
It's in our DNA, and I think that this is going to be the best All-Star that the NBA has ever seen. And you know, we've got the right people with the right heart serving on our committee, and we couldn't be more excited, Bill.
And an important component, the funding is coming from the championship fund, which is not only just the All-Star Game, but also the Final Four that year, and then the college football championship game the following January.
Correct. So it's just another example of how this community comes together and really looks for ways to really optimize everything. So the Indy Championship Fund is basically that fundraising arm for all those major marquee sporting events that are going to come into town. That way, each of those local organizing committees can just focus on execution and not worry about fundraising the dollars.
All right. Well, Rafael Sanchez, thanks for being on, taking your time away from your day job as president of private banking for Old National. So thanks for being on the show.
I appreciate it.
Gary, back to you.
Well, coming up, our insiders are getting warmed up to sound off on the state's increasing global profile, plus new jobs coming to Westfield and a lot more. There they are in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge, presented by Star Commercial Banking, Indiana born for Indiana business. Well, each week, a group of insiders joins me to offer perspective on some of the week's top stories. This week, sounding off on the potential impact of increased overseas economic development trips, a new distribution center and hundreds of jobs coming to Westfield, and Hoosier breweries shine in Denver. I'm pleased to welcome this week to the Insiders Tilson President Brent Tilson, also Veteran Strategies Inc. President and CEO Robert Vane, and Krieg DeVault partner Deborah Daniels. Welcome one and all to the Insiders for
Thank you.
Another edition, kind of a global edition, I think, of the Insiders. Deborah, I think more examples of Indianapolis, and Indiana's growing global presence. We had Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger on the show at the top of the show this week, talking about trade trips just back from India, China, Japan, South Korea.
Right.
These are becoming more the norm now than the exception. And seem to be paying off with investment. Just your take on Indiana's status in this global economy now. Seems the profile and the recognition seems to be increasing.
Absolutely. I think the governor said there are over 1,000 companies in Indiana that are owned by foreign interests, and so they're providing a lot of jobs. So it's important to us to be involved. Japan is the real leader, and we've been courting them since the early 80s. And
back then it was different. I mean,
oh, yes.
there was a lot of
Poor John Mutz.
Yeah, right. The gubernatorial election, that was an issue. The Subaru of Isuzu. It was Subaru Isuzu at the time. Now Subaru of Indiana Automotive. But yeah, it was a huge political issue, and it was not popular to be going overseas to court jobs.
Well, it's easy from a political bomb throwing perspective to say, why aren't you paying attention to Elkhart instead of being in India? But anyone who takes a broader, longer strategic view knows that there are tons of Indiana cities who are thriving because of overseas investment. I was communications director at the Indiana Republican Party when Governor Daniels flew back from Japan to announce the Honda plant. What has that done for that section? So it's easy to be political about it, but real politicians, real leaders see beyond that and do it anyway. And Greg Ballard's another example with a lot of this investment from India.
Yeah, we had real international focus. And to go back to Bob Orr, because I remember he took a leadership role in placing at the time the Department of Commerce putting international offices, which was really innovative at the time. Yeah, right, exactly. And that, I think, continues to pay dividends today because of our reputation globally.
I think it does, and I think there's a lot more public acceptance of this now.
Yeah.
You know, back then it sounded pretty strange.
Yeah, right. Brent, your business, your leader in the state, but in Greenwood, in that part of the state, and it's become these international companies have become so important for communities all over the state.
Oh, absolutely. So take, for example, Cummins and their expansion, their new third headquarters, so to speak, in Greenwood coming up. But they also have, a plant overseas. And I know that the governor visited there and had a chance to visit with them. And so we see this ongoing economic development across the world, and we have to be engaged. It's kind of like we chuckle about the NBA and the fact that Pacers played in India.
Right.
And the audience, 1.3 billion people in India. So the NBA is figuring it out, and so do we as a state. We have to be engaged worldwide because there's more out there than just us here in the States.
Yeah. Also, another example of that growing global presence. Big news announced this week at the Indianapolis Zoo. The zoo will be home to the Global Center for Species Survival. This was an idea that outgoing CEO Michael Crowther had a few years ago. It was signed, a deal was signed this week with a major, really the most influential wildlife preservation group in the world to create this and put this in Indianapolis. There's going to be any number of things happening, including conferences and events, all tied to this global species survival.
And that, coupled with Michael's other great idea, the Indianapolis Prize, which is the preeminent wildlife preservation event in the world, really makes Indianapolis the center for wildlife preservation, species survival. This is going to be very important. I think it's going to help with other economic development, and it's going to help attract young, talented people here.
Yeah. Your take on that, Rob, because it is, and again, to combine that with the Indianapolis Prize, it's pretty big.
The last point Deborah made is right on the money. All it takes is 10 seconds on Facebook to realize young folks love their animals. It's bigger and better than ever. And if you don't attract young talent, you wither on the vine. I mean, every mayor has said that and tried to do that. And this is an important part. You want families to live here? They like the zoo.
Well, and it's not just business. So you now are venturing into the nature space and animals. And so we're not just Indianapolis being all about business across the world. It's like, no, how do we be engaged worldwide in things that are important in many facets?
Yeah. A couple of big economic development announcements related this week. In Westfield, a community that has really focused on attracting youth sports and has made that a big business focus. Gordon Food Service, big organization that has something like 17 of these big distribution centers around the country, putting their first one here in Indianapolis, a major operation. Initially 200 jobs, looks to grow to 400 over the next 5 years. So a different kind of business for Westfield.
It is a different kind, but what's interesting is the technology that they're putting into this facility. So many of these plants today isn't just picking stuff off shelves. You have a lot of sophistication, a lot of robotics, and the things that they're going to be putting in this is going to be very exciting.
Venture capital has always been a challenge in Indiana. It seems to continue to get better. Amplify, the technology company, Santiago Jaramillo, $15 million Series B round of funding, which is big.
It's been great. It's been fun watching him. I've been working with Santiago a long time and different businesses, and this one hit, and it's going. He's doing a great job, and the money's coming around it, and that's what money does. They come around great ideas, and Amplify is doing it.
It is Indianapolis in particular, but Indiana in general, beginning to get that reputation out there that, hey, there are some pretty cool ideas happening here, pretty smart people, companies that can scale up, and so the investment dollars are beginning to flow in a little more.
Well, first off, it's the wisdom of a past governor to create the IEDC and emphasize this sort of effort to beyond just the United States, just the Midwest. That's paying dividends, continues. It won't ever stop as long as Indiana continues to modernize and be relevant. But there's a theme of everything that we've talked about on the Insiders, and I'll say it very quickly. Good news, good news, good news, good news. The good news is still coming.
Yeah, it is. And the academic, you had something you were...
Well, the other thing about this is that, these are companies that are using technology to solve big problems. So you've got, how do you attract, engage, and retain talent? Well, that's what they're working on. And the company in Fort Wayne that is focused on basically solving food problems through technology.
Yeah.
Well, if I may add, Gary, what's interesting is with the likes of Salesforce and the other tech companies who have located and continue to grow here, we're bringing the talent into the state that we need. So that talent then provides the opportunity for these tech companies to get the people they need. And the other advantage we have is we have an affordable, place to live. And so these people can come from the coast and do so much more here and put that capital to use and get a lot more from it.
And maybe one of the hardest questions to answer is, why not Indiana?
Exactly.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, absolutely. The academic pipeline we have here, both public and private institutions, a very big part of that. Butler University announced a major new strategic focus, also a big $200 million plus fundraising initiative. So Butler is really looking at the future with a very strategic eye.
And they're doing it for the right reasons. Universities are having to broaden their base. They're having to look at non-traditional students. We were talking before about how there's going to be a cliff of the traditional students about 2026, directly related apparently to the recession of 2008. And so one, you need to broaden out and reach these non-traditional students. Two, you need to find ways to connect students to the workforce much earlier in their college career.
Well, a great example is the digital marketing. Those students that go to digital marketing, by the time they get out of their freshman year, it's already changed 3 times. And so the universities have to evolve and come up with certificate programs and other things that are not just a 4-year bachelor degree. They have to find things that meet the workforce where they are and meet the needs of the companies.
Transitioning from students to beer, I guess that's a good transition. But some Hoosier breweries did very well at the huge beer awards competition out in Denver. And it's interesting, Sun King was the big winner, I think the biggest winner, 3 golds and a silver. But I look at, Sun King and so many of these Upland, there are a lot of these breweries that have popped up and have done very well, not only creating great product, but a business model that works.
unbelievably this came to me because I don't drink alcohol and never have. But as long as the industry's growing and
Yes.
everyone's being responsible, then more power to them. May I do one quick shout out?
Sure.
A very good friend of many of us is ill, and we wish him the best, and that's P.E. McAllister, who's done so much for this city.
He certainly has.
We love you, P.E., and we hope you feel better soon.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
That's a great way to end this segment of the Insiders
Thank you.
as well, Robert. So Robert Vane, Deborah Daniels, also Brent Tilson. Thanks one and all for joining us.
Thank you.
And we will be right back with more right after this. Stay with us. Coming up next week, the latest college equity report shows both good news and some potential challenges as well. Indiana Commission for Higher Education Commissioner Teresa Lubbers will be here to discuss. Plus, the Indiana Conference for Women has some big names. We'll tell you about them. That's next week. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures, with support from WFYI Productions.